So first presentation is on interior design and reporting. We are so happy to have Reeti here to be able to present to us. So you can present yourself.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm Reeti Gupta. I work for HKS. I work out of the Atlanta office, and I'm director of practice technology. We're a group of really cool people with superpowers. Some of them are here, and we tend to improve processes on any sorts of technology or workflows in the company, right from Revit to dRofus and everything that comes in between. So that's kind of in short. My journey with dRofus started in 2012, I think. At the time I was working for another company and was really impressed with the way of thinking. It was different at the time. We weren't thinking with kind of a management of rooms and the information that goes inside our rooms. And then, yes, Revit did have information, but this additional component that was talking to Revit back and forth with all the information exchange was really impressive. I think along the way, I kind of worked on it for a couple years then, and then did not work on it for 2 years. But since 2016, I've been actively involved in the adoption of dRofus at HKS, have been implementing dRofus on many of our healthcare projects. It's been a really good learning curve, and very recently this year we've had an opportunity where the Interiors Task Force, we had a committee that was formed to rethink the way we did furniture specifications. So since we were already using dRofus on some of our healthcare architecture planning projects, I kind of suggested that, hey guys, we already have the room information, everything that is about the room is in there, so why not use the items module to start looking at furniture specifications? And it was initially just a thought, and then started hacking at it and came up with some process that now works. So I'm gonna go get into it. I'll skip this. So the task force came up and provided us with a bunch of reports. The first one was the furniture specifications sheet. Again, I'm not sure if y'all are involved in any type of interiors work, or okay, so that's good to know. And then the upholstery report, and then we had 2 furniture schedules by code. One was with the cost estimate, and the other one was without it. And then the 5th one was furniture punch list, and then last one was a bid form that was to be provided to the manufacturer or to the product supplier to be able to spec out the items or the furniture that was picked for the project. Okay. So I think the first or second call we talked with Beatrix and Brock, and they basically told me that give us every piece of information together as much as possible. So we I generated this PDF with all the dimensions and kind of bringing out just a pro forma format of what this needs to look like. It didn't have to be exactly like this, but most of our designers wanted to keep it as close to it as possible. So in order to be able to produce those PDFs, we decided to create an interiors template database. So it's called HKS Interiors, and basically log in. And some of the slides over here are detailed. A lot of it is more like documentation for me to be able to train our interior designers once they start adopting this process. So bear with me, I just decided to use the same deck instead of creating another one. And then the top part where you have the information about the project on project name, location, the project number, when it's issued, etc. Those types of details live in the function data. So that's that icon from the second from the bottom left. And all of these fields were added in the GUI. So it's all custom pretty much. You can have whatever information you want to put in, and it will show up on the PDF report. And the way it shows up and how it shows up, that's the back-end stuff that Beatrix and Brock and these guys do. So we let them do their magic, and I did some of the workflow stuff. So for the items, all the furniture items were imported, and we had to work from an Excel spreadsheet that was provided to us by the designers, and they luckily had everything organized. So we decided on bringing them in as item groups, and we focused on the seating item group to be able to communicate on this project, on the ability to create the PDFs. So the way this is going to roll out is every project that starts in dRofus will have this pre-populated so that nobody has to import the information again and again. So we're calling these as parent items. Well, they are parent items, but we are saying that these parent items will always be there. And for your project, when you start using some of them, you're going to be placing or adding these parent items to either room templates or rooms. And then once you know what product you're going to use, because those things happen in a sequential fashion in a project. So it's not necessary that when they're planning the design, they'll know what manufacturer exactly are they going to use for a task chair. Are they going to use Herman Miller or Steelcase? They wouldn't know that at the point. So when they're planning it, they'll still use the parent items. And then we use the code. The reference field was used as the code to map it. And then we have the BIM ID that's going to link to our Revit families that also will be pre-linked. So that's another step that's going to get saved for our designers to go find the exact two-seat sofa family while they're placing it in Revit. So when we start thinking about what product we're going to use for that two-seat sofa, we're going to create a child item. And at the child item, it's going to adopt all the parameters that we've already fed to the parent item. So it's a good idea to go ahead and input some of the details at the parent level itself. So everything will be copied down to the child, even the BIM ID or the family. So I'm going to jump a little bit on how we coordinated with Beatrix on the mapping fields, because the communication on what field needs to be placed where on the PDF is not straightforward, it's not easy. So I did a little bit of a split screen exercise and just kind of mapped it and showed that, okay, this is where I'm going to use code. S2 is going to show up at that corner. And then here I've got the child can have a different name also. So instead of saying two-seat sofa, it could be a red sofa. Okay. So when you're in the child, you're kind of clicking on that, and you get into the specifications tab. You have the option of customizing this interface using dynamic GUI, and that's where we've put in the description, dimensions, and again, the dimension could have just been a single line edit, but we decided to do height, width, depth, and keep it to that, and then finish. We are assigning the finish right here. We had a separate checkbox for arm finish, base finish, and then we've got the fabric options that will be selected over here, whether the fabric is going to be applied on the seat and the back, or as well as on the arms. So some of this information, we sat with the designers and had this dialogue with them as to what is important, what must show up and what shouldn't show up. So there could be additional fields that they want to record but not have it on the PDF as well. So that's a secondary step that we may have added later. Okay. On the images tab, we decided to just leave the images tab to associate itself only with the finish, not with the fabric. So here we see that this particular chair has a brushed metal base, and then it has two fabrics, but those fabric images do not come from here. And I'll explain where they come from. So we use the sub item for the sofa and for the fabrics, and we created another item group called fabric, and that item group is not going to be pre-populated unless our designers think that they have their typicals to go to. So that's a conversation we need to have once they are into the process and think about what can be pre-populated and what needs to be completely different from project to project. So at this time, we've decided to just have them add these fabrics once they're in it. So if they needed to add a red or green fabric, they'd go ahead and create a new sub-item, and it would show up in the sub-items dialog. That's the little icon on the right that opens up that tab on the bottom screen. And then you can go into the sub-item, and again, this is the general tab, which is already there. Same logic, we used the reference field for the code for the upholstery. So here, upholstery A says code 1. And this is kind of the pre-populated information that can live here. The upholstery tab over here is completely customized to the fields that show up on the PDF. So we've kind of mapped it over here to show what needs to be filled in, what gets printed out. So in this case, there's certain fields that don't get printed out, but we still fill them up in the form. The images, we do use the images in the specifications right here, so that we have our fabric images uploaded over here. And they'll get pulled into the report. So, and the logic was to go from the bottom right to the left. So the 2 squares on the right were reserved for fabrics, and the 2 squares to the left were reserved for finishes on the furniture. Okay. So some of the things that I definitely want to make sure that our designers understand is this whole what parent is and what child is, and why we're doing a new item child, a new sub-item, and a new product. So the new item child we're doing is because we want to customize the information for every project. Not every project will have the exact same piece of furniture. The sub-item is for the fabric, and the new product is again custom per project. So, and then we also utilize the company module. So I've got some of the icons just displayed over here, so they know these are the things that we're going to click on when we're working. So another way of just kind of looking at the information, where items is to furniture, item groups is to categories. We're creating a new child item for any specified furniture, and creating a sub-item for the fabric. So in theory, we're thinking of utilizing room templates and planning all our rooms with the furniture that always fits in that room. There would be some projects where most of the furniture can be pre-planned and some we cannot. So just depends on what it is. Patient rooms in a large healthcare project can totally be planned beforehand. And again, that's all at the parent item level. So if you have, let's say, a lobby and you have 4 lounge chairs in it, but you don't know what type of lounge chairs, what product it is, you can still plan it, and it will count them as occurrences, so you'll have 4 of them. So the child item inherits everything that's been assigned to the parent, and that's how you can even get the occurrences right there. So if your room template has been assigned, and then you're at the level where you're going to use products to assign to the child item, it's going to know that it's going to be 4 of those lazy boy lounge chairs when your product has been assigned. So there are certain steps that come up when you actually do it, that it may not work with a room template. I'll just kind of go ahead and show it. So I'm gonna go forward. So this is basically showing how we use the product module. And so here, the 2-seat sofa, the child is ready to assume a product. So we right click on it, say new product. In this case, it's all empty. There's no name, nothing to it. We'll just go ahead and add some information over there as to what the name, number, model, etc. is. And then we'll click on the manufacturer button over there. So instead of typing it there, you can also have it connect to the company module. So and we'll go to that. So we also have a pre-populated list of companies. So in the product itself, it has its own properties. So that's where we were going to fill in the name number that shows up right here in the properties window. And then the image for the product can be assigned as well. There's a add images button in the product ribbon, and you just go ahead and add the image that you can find on the internet. You can technically, even if you don't save that image, you just copy paste the link and it shows up the image. So it's pretty quick. So when you clicked on the manufacturer button, you can get a list of companies. In this case, in the early stages, I just had filled 3, but we have a longer list now. And just pick it. If you have the same supplier, that's cool. If not, you can have another one, and that can also be in the list. Okay, and then I wanted the information for the manufacturer and the name, etc., come in from the product module. I did not want this information to be populated from the parent item specification. So this was very important that we could do this. And it was a little bit of a conversation, I remember, but I think eventually we worked it out. Okay, how are we doing on time? All right, so this is the same thing. So if you go in the companies module, you can add new company. You can even import the list of companies from an Excel spreadsheet. That's what I did. And then if you click on each company, you can add a new contact to that company. So the names kind of are associated to the company. So that's good. The contacts live with the company. At this point, we are not able to pull that contact information to the PDF. We have to almost manually copy paste the information to the contact information area in the item specs. So we're hoping that in the future we see that ability. Also, it might be good to have kind of the regional contacts grouped together. So there's some organization in the contact would be nice. So you fill in the details, and then in the actual process, I'm gonna come out. Okay, so now I'm like directly in dRofus, and I'll go and show you a few things here. So that's our items, and I'm gonna go straight into seating. And this is what we were talking about, the 2-seat sofa. So right now, all you see is the parent items. They do not have any children, but it's actually just sorted in a different way. So if I just sort through item number, we'll start seeing the children again. So that's the 2-seat sofa for, I just said general and lobby. So one parent can have multiple children, yeah, of course. And so you could have a red 2-seat sofa, you could have a blue 2-seat sofa, etc. And the good thing is, as I said, the process where you've already planned, you have 2 types of sofas in a room, and then you can go and swap it. So I'm going to show you how that works. So let's go to the rooms, and some of this might already have stuff. So in the reception, I go onto the furniture tab. This is difficult to see. So clearly I had already gotten this, so let me go ahead and delete this. Save it. So here you're seeing that, I have 3 different types of lazy boy chairs. One's blue, red, and there's another one blue. So first thing, I'm gonna assume that this is the first time I'm putting in anything. So let's go ahead and select seating, 2-seat sofa. So this is, if you're planning, then you've planned for a 2-seat sofa, and then you're going to go in over here and say, I'd like to have 2 of these. So you can always change the quantity here. And then once you have that done, and you're at the stage where you're ready to assign a product to it, first you got to save, and then click on that, and you got to split, because there's 2 of them, and I want to have a different product on each of them. So I'm going to split that occurrence. So now I have these 2, but then they're not children yet. They're still parents. So I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to go ahead and swap it. for one of the child. That's here. And then I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to swap it to the second one. And then hit save. So now at this stage, I've got the products assigned to it. Okay, going back to items and the general, I'll open this guy up. So what it shows me in the specifications is a general description, the size of it, the finish of it, and this is the contact information that I was talking about that I have to actually just manually type it or bring it in from the contact list. And then if I click on, let's do it here, the sub-items right here, it shows up and I have assigned sub-items that has a fabric to it. It's the gray twill, and these are the details for the upholstery, and these are the images. If you have additional documents, PDFs, you can always upload them as well. So we went through a number of scenarios where we thought about, okay, what if we have a furniture item that has 4 fabrics? What if we have a furniture item that has 0 fabrics? What if we have something that has 1 finish and 1 fabric? So our reports are going to look very different. So given all those scenarios, we tested and marked it up and tested and marked it up. It was a number of revisions, and wasn't easy just because of scheduling and availability. It was a lengthier process, but I think eventually it's beautiful. So I am extremely happy with the output. So if you remember, these were the different requirements that were coming out from the request from the interior design group, and now we have the ability to either individually print them, or we could print the complete list together, and we could always kind of limit it to a particular item number. And you can go down and select seating and the 2-seat sofa. So right here you want to select the child, not the parent, because the child has the product associated to it. This is kind of awkward over here, but so what we did so that we could only list the children over here was that we assigned a unique identifier, which was --. So if you click on, if you just type that in over here, it's just going to list all the children and it's not going to list any of the parents. So that way it becomes a little cleaner to understand what you want to print. So I can do these two that we just saw. Click OK and generate. So if this generates, while this generates, we'll see it. I already have another PDF to show the different types of examples, but yep. So yeah, right? So this is the red one, and so this is where we only had 1 fabric and 1 finish. So we're just going to stick to this, even if this shows an empty area besides it. So the right side has all the upholstery, the left side has all the information for the furniture piece. So I'm going to pull up the other examples. This is kind of printed beforehand. Wanted to pull this one up. So when you have a furniture piece with 4 fabrics, what happens? So you have the upholstery A, B, that's over here, A and B, and C and D. So we just run into a second page for C and D. But yeah, that's where we are. And this one in particular has a number of finishes as well, and a number of fabrics as well. So we tried to address everything in terms of scenarios, and I'm sure there might be some scenarios that might crop up, and we'll address them when they do. But any questions, or did I go through this very fast?
No questions?
Are you guys creating your own reports, or are you having dRofus create?
Yeah, so in terms of the process, we did talk about everything, and then I created an XML file and I sent it over to them. So they created the reports for us. So now, I mean, once the whole process is done, then it's obviously us. But the templating was done by them.
Can you demonstrate the link between Revit? Does it pull information or does it push information back into Revit?
That's the same. I mean, that's just the way you'd anyways link your furniture items to Revit. So you can go and place the pre-planned furniture items in the room. So it'll just drop it into the center or wherever your room crosshairs are, and then just move it around. So the information, or when your furniture families are in Revit, they need not be aware of the product. So that's fine. So for planning the furniture, we just want to make sure that we're using the right families, our floor plans look clean, our elevations look clean, our views look good, but we're not necessarily pushing any product information in the parameters for that furniture piece in Revit. That's done in dRofus.
With the coding and how you tag that?
Yeah, the tagging will go. Yeah, the reference code will tie. So the S2, if you're tagging a furniture item, that would be red. That's a parameter that we have pushed, yeah.
What parameter are you pushing that into?
Type mark?
The type mark?
Type mark, yeah.
The type mark.
Yep, yeah.
What was the driver for using child items?
The child item, so as I explained, the parent item allows me to pre-plan, but that parent item can stay in the database for multiple projects. The child is going to be different for every project. So it allows the designers to be flexible and say that, okay, the two-seat sofa need not be the lazy boy blue for all my projects, right? So I mean, we do not want to populate the database with products on the parent item already. So the child item gave us the ability to be flexible and also have multiple options. So you could have a scenario where you have a waiting area with the same three-seater sofa, but a different look or a different product or a different manufacturer even placing those items in that room. So that way, if you have 3 children with 3 different products, you can still do that by splitting that occurrence as I showed, and then assigning a different product to each one. So
the interior standards database that she's showing here is a company-wide standard. So what's in there are items that we're already using firm-wide. So it's kind of like your standard repository, and then the child is the project customization for that item.
Right.
So it's allowing the designers to be more flexible, and I know I need 3 sofas in this room, I'm just going to grab 3 of the parent, and then once they know more about the specific sofas, then they can split it apart.
Yep.
It's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And when they're placing the furniture in Revit, they're still placing the parent. So the family, I mean, even the child will have the same family, but it's not going to change the look of it. We're not changing the family. Anyways, we do not use product Revit families, like manufacturer Revit families, because they can get very complicated and heavy for the model. We are addressing that in a separate way for renderings, but not for our actual interior scope of work.
Is there query, maybe you did, I missed this in the beginning, is this stored per project? Could there be queries and cross projects to say, like, where have we used this furniture on how many other projects?
That's a good question.
The database per project, or just?
No, it's one database, and then you have the projects that are within it. So yeah, you could go back.
Can you query and say, where have we used this before in what project?
I think that's something we would like to have. So I can't think of what.
We don't support that currently.
Yeah.
But it is a request that is something we have heard before.
Yeah. So I think if we can export the products that are used in a project to Excel even.
And then search it.
And then, yeah. So that might be beneficial.
Is there a purchase order possibility? Does it generate a purchase order?
What we've done is just I didn't even show this. So this was the upholstery report. Sorry, I'll come back to that question. And it's basically showing all the different fields that we needed and listing all the different fabric items to it. So this is pretty lengthy because it's got multiple items to it. That's the furniture schedule by code and with the cost. That's right here. And then that's just without the same thing. And then this is the furniture punch list. So the furniture punch list, this was a pretty extensive effort that we had to coordinate with our designers as well as to what they really needed to see. And they redesigned this whole thing. They saying that they needed to see the furniture thumbnail. They also needed to see the fabric thumbnail, and which way we wanted to print it, whether it goes from center out or left to right. So, and then they wanted the comments option box to be empty, so they could just use this PDF in Bluebeam and mark it up when they're actually doing the punch on site. And then this is the bid form and unit price schedule that goes directly to the manufacturer to give us the cost and estimates on things. So I think this is where we are at. This is in PDF, but we also have an Excel output to it. But in terms of purchasing, I haven't used that. So, and I don't know if y'all have that ability.
These guys.
We do have a full purchasing module where you will have a unique ID for each item to purchase, but I guess you are not looking into that.
No, not yet. So, and that's the thing. I mean, with this, every time I talked about it in the office, it was more like, well, it's not a furniture specifications tool. And I'm like, yes, it's not. And that's exactly why we want to start making it kind of flexible enough to make it work the way we wanted to make it work. So if we need more features, I'm just going to bug you guys.
Did you have something else before, or?
Yeah, they had been using spec sources before this. So
why did you leave spec sources then?
it was clunky in terms of the way it printed.
I already know you're probably using it.
There was
You're probably the architecture part.
Yeah.
But spec sources is
Yeah, I mean, there's several products out there, and the primary reason, one of the reasons is that we already have the room database in a project, then why not just kind of associate the furniture items to it? And then the ability to pre-plan and be able to link to your Revit model. It's a lot more we can do faster in this. And then we had certain hiccups with spec sources kind of not working correctly, not printing correctly, and it was becoming a hassle. So I think
the biggest thing is it's disconnected data.
it's continuity right now.
It's everything about your project's in dRofus, but your furniture's somewhere else.
Yeah.
So having that all in one place is pretty important these days.
So costs can that be tied back to a database, for existing internal database?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The costs for the furniture, can that be tied back to an internal database?
Yeah, I think if it's a field, we can export it. So yeah, it should be.
Bring that, because our costs would live in a different database.
Yeah.
By FF&E crew or project manager. Can those costs be kind of pulled into dRofus?
I don't know the answer to that.
Data in Excel, we can easily just pull it in.
We did that with equipment. We have an equipment database, and it's all specific, like manufacturer-specific equipment. And when we're pushing into a project, we just go into the master database, pull those items out, and then import it into the project-specific database. So all that information comes from
The project.
Yes.
The most common use case in Europe is that all the different disciplines of equipment planners are using dRofus, and all of them are budgeting the pieces of equipment. So that means that you get a complete report for the budget for all the different disciplines of equipment planning.
I think from an FF&E point of view, in the Australian experience, we have the ability to be able to upload and manage many different cost estimates for many different occasions, depending upon milestones that the clients put down. And we just suck those up from external databases. We run SQLs and then just populate them back up into the dRofus model, and then the dRofus model gets published as a specific milestone within that project. As you know, MCs just want stuff at weird times. So sometimes they don't want to see prices, sometimes they do want to see prices.
Yeah, and I notice you have reports to show sell price and not sell price, so we can hide the fact that we put into.
Yeah.
So that kind of gets back to, we're moving into furniture, fixtures, equipment. It's the same format. Can you use that for publishing out fixtures and equipment?
I'm sure, yeah.
And different disciplines will have different interfaces of the software, so the specification sheet will obviously be very different from different disciplines. So they will work completely independently with independent user rights and access levels.
Yeah. And we can customize those fields as well. So, where the fabric had repeat and pattern, for equipment, whatever else we need, we can swap it out. So.
And each discipline will have separate their own templates, so you don't have to work with other people's templates. Right. I can promise you that we will fix your issue with the contact information as soon as possible, because that's an easy fix. We didn't know it was a problem.
Okay, good. Thanks.
So that was good. Let's move on. We have been.
Thank you, Reeti. Thank you.